He was lying in the snow, freezing to death, and I didn't even know he was my father. My mom made me believe that he had abandoned us. But it was she who took me away, and took his whole life away from him. My name is Clara. I'm 38. I'm a nurse at Allegheny General in Pittsburgh, and a single mom to a 7-year-old boy who still believes in magic. I've seen people on the edge of death more times than I can count. But that night, in the brutal grip of January, I swear, I felt death kneeling beside that man. It was -20 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind was slicing like broken glass. I had just gotten off a double shift, hands frozen even through my gloves, my breath fogging up the windshield. I turned into our neighborhood like a ghost, thinking only of sleep, until my headlights caught a shape lying crumpled on the sidewalk near the woods, under the glow of a flickering street lamp. Most people would have driven past. Maybe I should have. But I stopped. He was wrapped in rags, curled on a torn piece of cardboard. A plastic bag tied to his belt like it was the last thing he owned. His skin was blue, lips cracked, and his eyes barely open, locked onto mine like he knew me. I ran to him. "Hey, can you hear me, sir?" His mouth trembled. I leaned closer. That's when he whispered it, "Clara." I froze. He couldn't have known my name. I hadn't said a word. No badge, no uniform. "Do you know me?" I asked, heart thudding so loud I could barely hear. His eyes rolled back. He passed out. And instead of calling 911 like I should have, I did something insane. I took him home. I don't even know why. Maybe it was the way he looked at me. Maybe it was something deeper. Something I didn't understand yet. All I knew was this man was not a stranger. And I wasn't ready for what I was about to find. He was shivering on my couch, wrapped in every spare blanket I owned, while I stood in my kitchen clutching a mug I couldn't drink from, watching the steam curl like a question I didn't know how to answer. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not reckless. I'm a nurse, a mom, a woman who locks her doors twice and triple checks the stove. But something about this man bypassed every warning light in my head. Like my body recognized him before my mind caught up. I kept the lights low. My son was at his dad's that weekend, thank God, or I don't know how I would have explained this to him. The man was unconscious for hours. I'd given him fluids, wrapped his fingers in warm compresses, monitored his breathing. Still, he barely moved, except once. Around 3 a.m., I heard a whisper from the couch. "Clara." I turned so fast I knocked my mug off the counter. It shattered on the tile like a gunshot. He didn't even flinch. Just lay there, eyes open now, sunken and gray, like someone who'd watched too many winters die. "How do you know my name?" I asked. He blinked slowly, lips dry, bloodless. His voice came out like the wind under a door. "You look like her." "Like who?" He closed his eyes again. "Anna." My stomach dropped. That was my mother's name. My full name is Clara Annette Russo. My mom, Anna Russo, raised me on her own in a small duplex 2 blocks from the river. She never spoke about my father. If I asked, she'd freeze up, change the subject, or give some vague line like, "He wasn't cut out to be a dad." I grew up believing he'd walked out. Maybe died. Maybe ran. Either way, he was a blank space in my life, a shadow with no face. And now this broken man on my couch had said her name. I went cold all over. The next morning I found the photo. I'd gone through the plastic bag tied to his belt while he slept, searching for ID. There was no wallet. No phone. Just scraps of paper, a rosary, and one photo, folded and worn so thin the edges looked chewed. It showed a little girl, no more than 3, with pigtails and a yellow dress, laughing in the arms of a young woman who looked just like my mother. Same eyes. Same crooked front tooth. Same freckle above her eyebrow. But it wasn't me in the photo. I flipped it over. On the back in shaky handwriting were the words. "For Dad. I'm sorry I disappeared." That's when my knees gave out. I sat on the floor right there in my kitchen, the tile freezing through my pajama pants, holding this old photo and shaking hands like it might explain my whole life. Who was this man? Was he my father? No. That couldn't be right. My father was gone. He never wanted me. That's what I was told. I stared at the man sleeping on my couch, so thin I could count every bone in his face, every shadow of time carved into him. He didn't look like anyone. He looked like everyone who'd ever been abandoned. And somehow it hurt more than it should have. It wasn't just pity. It was grief. For him. For me. For a story I didn't even know yet. I didn't sleep. I sat up all night holding that photo, waiting for morning to bring answers. But all it brought was silence. and the quiet sound of a man breathing who might have once been my father. A man I wasn't sure I wanted to meet. I didn't talk to him for 2 full days. He slept mostly, ate when I gave him soup, thanked me in barely audible whispers, never asked where he was, never tried to leave. It was like he knew I needed time. But my mind wouldn't shut up. I kept turning that photo over in my hands like it was a riddle with a missing piece. That little girl wasn't me, but the woman holding her? It was unmistakably my mother. Her smile, her hands, even the old silver ring she used to wear on her thumb. I'd buried her with it when she died 6 years ago from pancreatic cancer. She never talked about the past. Ever. I used to think it was just pain or maybe shame. I asked once when I was 15. Did he love you? And she had just stared at me like I'd said something cruel. Like I'd ripped open a wound. And now I couldn't stop asking the same question. Was this man, this filthy sunken stranger on my couch him? And if he was, where the hell had he been all my life? I started Googling, searching public records, old court cases, even obituaries. Nothing. I didn't even know what name to look for. My birth certificate had father, unknown. Mom never put a name, never said a word. But the next time I brought him tea, I decided to try. You said my mother's name. He looked up slowly like every movement hurt. Anna. How did you know her? A flicker of something behind his eyes, fear? Pain. She was everything. That answer made my throat tighten. I set the cup down hard. That's not what I asked. Who are you? He sat up slowly, his hands trembling as he wrapped them around the mug, like it was the only warm thing he'd felt in years. My name's Joseph, he said. Joseph Lane. The name meant nothing to me. No flicker of recognition. Just air. I knew Anna in the late 80s. We were together. Lived in Homestead. She got pregnant. I wasn't ready. He coughed hard and it rattled something deep in his chest. I should have been worried, nurse instincts should have kicked in, but I was too busy staring at the man who just unraveled the first lie of my life. Keep going. His eyes filled with something like shame, or regret, or both. I was drinking. A lot. Thought I could stop. Thought I'd get better. Then the night she left, he paused. His voice cracked. She was gone. Just gone. Left a note on the table and disappeared with the baby. Said she couldn't do it anymore. I leaned against the counter to keep from falling over. She never said anything, I whispered. I looked, he said, staring into the cup. For years. Every place we'd ever talked about moving. Every cousin she had. Then I got arrested. Possession. 2 years in. Then rehab. Then out again. Then another shelter. I had nothing left. I was just chasing ghosts. I couldn't breathe, because I wanted to believe him, but I didn't know how. You don't know I'm your daughter, I snapped, suddenly angry. You whispered my name, but people talk in their sleep all the time. You don't have proof. He nodded slowly like he'd expected that. And that's when he reached into the crumpled plastic bag beside him and pulled out something I hadn't seen before. A tiny red mitten. Frayed. Torn. Faded almost pink. I've had this since the day she left, he said, holding it like a relic. She left it behind in the rush. Said it was yours. I stared at it. I didn't remember it. But something in me did. Somehow I believed him. And I hated that I did. Because if it was true, then my mother lied to me. For 35 years. She'd let me believe I was unwanted. Fatherless. Abandoned. When maybe, just maybe, I was lost. Stolen. Cut off from a man who had fallen too far and spent the rest of his life trying to climb back. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I sat on the edge of the couch beside him and held that little mitten in my hand like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I need time, I said. He nodded. I'm not asking for anything, he said quietly. You already gave me more than I ever thought I'd have. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling until the shadows shifted with dawn. And I asked myself the question I'd been running from. What if he never left us? What if she took me away and never looked back? I didn't want to go to the attic. I hadn't opened the old cedar chest since my mother died. It still smelled like her. Lavender soap, old paper, something warm and worn out. But that day something in me snapped. I needed to know what else she'd kept from me. The chest creaked when I lifted the lid. Inside were the relics of a life she never talked about. Faded Polaroids, letters tied with string, a pair of ballet slippers from when I was little, and near the bottom, wrapped in a scarf I remembered from when I was 4, a sealed envelope yellowed with age. My name was written on the front. I sat down right there on the wooden floor, dust clinging to my jeans, and opened it with shaking hands. The letter was short. Clara, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And maybe, just maybe, he found you. I don't know if I was right to leave. I was scared. He was spiraling. I had to protect you. But I should have told you the truth. Your father loved you. He really did. But I didn't know if love was enough to keep you safe. Forgive me. Love, Mom. I read it twice. Then a third time. Then I dropped it, and it fluttered to the floor like a dead thing. She knew. She knew he didn't abandon us. And she left anyway. She let me grow up believing I was unwanted. I don't remember walking back downstairs. I just remember standing in the living room, holding the letter in one hand and the old photo in the other, and looking at the man still lying on my couch like he didn't know whether he belonged in the world or not. You were right, I said. My voice cracked. He turned his head slowly. About what? She took me. He didn't speak. Just blinked, slow and sad, like someone trying not to drown. She wrote me a letter. Said she was scared. Said she didn't know if love was enough to keep me safe. I was drinking, he admitted. A lot. I don't blame her. I do. I snapped louder than I meant to. My voice echoed off the walls. She lied to me. My whole life. I thought you didn't care. I thought you left. I would've, he said softly after a pause. Back then. Maybe not at first. But I was too far gone. She wasn't wrong to be afraid. I wanted to scream. Because I believed him. Because he didn't try to excuse himself. He didn't tell me some polished lie. He just sat there, fragile and small, and told me what I already knew. That they both failed me. But one of them died with the lie. And the other was sitting in front of me, finally telling the truth. I hated you for years, I whispered. Even without knowing you. I imagined you choosing to disappear. I pictured you in some other life, free and happy while I watched Mom work 2 jobs and cry when she thought I was asleep. I never stopped looking, he said. Even when I had nothing left. Even when I hated myself too much to believe I deserved you. I sat down on the edge of the coffee table, letter still in hand. My chest felt like it was full of glass. What do I do with this? I asked, voice shaking. What do I do with the fact that my mother, the woman I worshipped, lied to me about the most important thing in my life? He didn't answer. Because there was no answer. He just looked at me with those hollow eyes and said, sometimes the people who love us the most are the ones who hurt us worst. Because they think they're protecting us. Because they're scared to let the truth in. We sat in silence. Just the sound of the heater ticking and the wind clawing at the windows. And for the first time since I found him, I felt it. Grief. Not for what I lost. But for what I never got to have. A dad. A real one. Bedtime stories, Saturday pancakes, someone to walk me down the aisle the day I married the wrong man. He missed all of it. And so did I. Because of fear. Because of addiction. Because 2 people made one desperate decision in the middle of a storm. Why did you say my name that night? I asked finally. He looked at me, tears in his eyes. Because I've whispered it every day for 35 years. I thought if I said it enough, maybe the universe would take pity on me. That broke me. I didn't cry loud. Just sat there, face buried in my hands, shoulders shaking like a child left in the dark too long. And when I finally looked up, he was crying too. 2 broken people. 1 lost life between us. And somehow, in that moment, it didn't feel like hate anymore. Felt like mourning. I didn't speak to anyone for days. Not my coworkers. Not my ex. Not even my son, when he called from his dad's to ask if he could bring his stuffed dinosaur back with him on Sunday. I said yes, of course, with a smile I didn't feel. Then I hung up and sat alone in the kitchen while the soup on the stove boiled over, hissing against the burner like something angry. Joseph, my father, stayed in the spare bedroom. He slept more than he was awake. I brought him meals, checked his blood pressure, offered antibiotics for the cough that hadn't gone away. But the silence between us was thick. I didn't know how to bridge it. It was easier when I didn't know who he was. When he was just a stranger I'd rescued on instinct. Back then it felt noble, kind, human. Now it felt like sitting across from a mirror I wasn't ready to look into. The worst part? I missed my mom. Even after everything, I still reached for my phone to call her. Still caught myself about to say, "You're not going to believe what just happened." And then I'd remember. She was gone. And the version of her I'd built in my headstrong, selfless brave was gone too. I kept replaying every moment from my childhood, hunting for clues. A slip of the tongue. A story that didn't make sense. An expression on her face when I asked about my dad. She hid it all so well. Was that strength or cruelty? The days blurred. Snow kept falling, blanketing the city like a secret. I walked to work through the cold, let my hands go numb on purpose. It was easier to feel pain than confusion. When I came home, the apartment felt different. Not just because there was a man sleeping in the guest room, but because I wasn't sure what any of it meant anymore. Who was I, really? The daughter of a woman who lied to protect me? Or the daughter of a man who once lost everything but somehow still remembered my name? I sat at the edge of my bed one night with the photo in my hand again. The one with my mother and the little girl. The one that wasn't me. I realized then I wasn't just grieving them. I was grieving the version of myself that never got to exist. The girl who might have grown up in a house where both parents loved her. The girl who might have known where her smile came from. The girl who wouldn't have had to wonder, why wasn't I enough to make him stay? I couldn't get her back. But I could decide what to do with the truth. And for the first time I realized something. The past had already taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let it take my future too. I don't know what snapped in me. Maybe it was the way he coughed again at breakfast, that deep wet sound that rattled in his chest. Or the way he looked up at me with those hollow guilty eyes and whispered, "I don't deserve your kindness." But I slammed the spoon down on the table so hard it cracked. "You don't," I said, teeth clenched. "You don't deserve it. But here you are. Still breathing. In my house." His face didn't change. He just sat there like he'd been expecting that moment since the day I brought him in. "I know," he said softly. And that made me angrier. I stood up. Pushed the chair back so fast it scraped across the tile like a scream. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop them. "You say you loved her, but you let her walk out the door with your child. You say you looked for me but you gave up when it got hard. You say you didn't stop saying my name, but where were you when I cried for someone who never came?" His hands were folded in front of him. Still. Small. Like a prisoner waiting for the verdict. "You don't get to be the victim," I snapped. "I'm not. You are." I shouted. "You've convinced yourself this is some tragic story of addiction and heartbreak. But it's not. It's a story about a man who let a little girl grow up thinking she was garbage, because you were too weak to fight harder." He flinched. A visible, sharp movement. Then silence. I waited for him to argue, to defend himself, to yell back. But he just nodded. And said the words I least expected. "You're right." That hit harder than anything else he could have said. Because part of me wanted him to fight back. I wanted him to scream and rage and justify. To give me a reason to hate him again. But he didn't. He just sat there, tears welling, shoulders folded inward like a man collapsing in on himself. "I don't want forgiveness," he said, voice breaking. "I don't even deserve your anger. I know I failed. I know I hurt you. But thank you for letting me see your face." I turned away so he wouldn't see mine crack. Because behind the fury was something worse, pity. And behind that, something even more dangerous. Love trying to bloom out of the ashes. I hated that part of me. The part that still wanted a father. That still wondered what it would have been like to have him hold my hand on the first day of school. That still reached for his voice in a crowd, without even knowing it. "I don't forgive you," I said quietly. "I know. I don't know if I ever will. I don't expect you to." But I didn't kick him out. And I didn't walk away. I sat back down at the table, across from the man who ruined everything before I could even understand what I'd lost. And we ate our soup in silence. Because sometimes rage burns through everything. Just to clear a space for something new. Even if it's not forgiveness. Even if it's just not hating anymore. It was snowing again the morning he left. Thick, quiet flakes drifting past the window like time itself was slowing down to watch. I made coffee like always, humming a lullaby under my breath I hadn't realized I still remembered, something my mom used to sing when I was sick. Joseph sat at the table, bundled in the cleanest clothes I could find him. The cough had eased. His eyes were clearer. He looked not healed, but human again. He held the red mitten in his hands, thumb brushing across the fabric like he was touching a piece of history, a relic of the daughter he never got to hold, now sitting across from him with the same eyes he once loved in her mother. "I'm going to the shelter on 8th, he said. "They've got beds for the month. I won't be far." I nodded, pretending that didn't hurt. "They've got a clinic too. You need a chest x-ray." He gave me a crooked smile. "You sound like a nurse." "I am a nurse," I said, trying to smile back. "And you're stubborn." We laughed. Quietly, carefully, like we were still learning how to breathe around each other. Then his face changed. Serious. Heavy. "I don't want you to feel responsible for me," he said. "I came here to die, Clara. And instead, you let me see the kind of woman you became. I don't need more than that." I didn't know what to say. So I walked to the drawer in the hallway, pulled something out, and pressed it into his hands. A copy of the photo. The one with Mom and the little girl. I'd had it scanned. Printed on thick paper. Clean edges. Like something that belonged in a frame, not a wallet. He stared at it for a long time, thumb shaking as he held it. "I thought she hated me," he whispered. "All these years. I thought she took you to punish me." "She was scared," I said. "But I think she still loved you. She just didn't know how to trust you again." He nodded. Slowly. Then stood up and wrapped his scarf around his neck, careful and deliberate, like he wasn't sure how to move through the world yet. At the door he hesitated. "I'll never ask you to call me Dad," he said. But I stepped forward anyway, heart pounding, and hugged him. His breath caught. Arms frozen for a second, then wrapped around me carefully like I might break. We stood like that in the doorway while the snow kept falling. And I felt it, something inside me uncoiling. Releasing. Softening. Not forgiveness. But understanding. Not a fairy tale ending. But something real. That night, I lit a candle in the window. Just like Mom used to every Christmas when I was little. I always thought it was for tradition. Maybe now I knew, maybe it was for him. Some part of her still hoping he'd find his way home. He never did. But I did. I found him. And in doing that, maybe I found the part of myself I didn't even know was missing. I didn't save a stranger that night. I saved a part of myself. And I think he did too.